So picture this. It is 4 o'clock in the morning on a remote volcanic island in the Indian Ocean.
Just completely isolated.
Right, totally isolated. And while the rest of the world is basically asleep, there's this single radio tower broadcasting an ambient jazz mix out into the dark.
It's such a striking image.
It really is. And, that solitary transmission might just hold the cure to your smartphone addiction.
I mean, we all kind of need that right now.
Absolutely. If you are joining us for this deep dive, you're probably feeling the exhaustion of, our modern media diet. Everything we consume is just so optimized.
Oh, hyper-accelerated. Just engineered to spike your dopamine constantly.
Exactly. But today we are looking at this really fascinating source document titled Volcanic Shores and Shifting Smoke.
Yeah, it's a brilliant piece of analysis.
It really is. It looks at an FM radio program hosted by a broadcaster named Naya. And honestly, this document reads like a blueprint for discovering intimacy in a post-digital world.
It genuinely serves as an antidote to that constant state of, forced engagement we all live in.
Right. So what Naya is doing on the island of Mauritius is incredibly rare.
Yeah, because her broadcast airs exclusively in that deep, liminal window, specifically between 3 and 7 in the morning.
Which is such a specific choice. And instead of playing a standard upbeat playlist, to keep night shift workers energized, she creates what the text calls an emotional weather system.
An emotional weather system. I just love that phrase.
Me too. She uses silence not just as an empty space, but as an active instrument. It turns a simple late-night radio slot into this deep exploration of memory and atmosphere.
It really does. But, before we can understand why her approach matters culturally, we have to understand the actual mechanics of what it sounds like.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sonic architecture of this broadcast is highly specific.
It's so deliberate. The document notes that she blends smooth jazz, chill-out, down-tempo, ambient grooves.
Even some new jazz and lo-fi textures in there, right?
Exactly. But the defining characteristic tying all of that together is restraint.
Restraint. The tracks don't have those traditional hard cuts or crossfades. They just kind of evaporate into each other.
Yeah, they evaporate like smoke. There's this one specific example in the text that completely blew my mind.
Oh, the trumpet solo.
Yes. She takes this frenetic, super fast-paced bebop trumpet solo, right?
Oh.
And she runs it through an ambient reverb pedal until it stretches out and sounds almost like a siren wailing in the distance.
Oh, wow.
And then she seamlessly bleeds that echo into the sound of actual rain hitting a tin roof.
That is it's brilliant. And that moment perfectly captures her philosophy of restraint. Because if you think about traditional jazz broadcasting,
the focus is almost entirely on virtuosity.
Exactly. You've got dense chord changes, improvisational fireworks, just a lot of performative exhibition.
It's very demanding music.
It really is. And Naya's curation deliberately moves in the opposite direction.
By manipulating that trumpet solo, she strips away the frantic rhythm. She leaves only that haunting tonal tail, which prioritizes emotional permeability.
Right. She basically creates space for the listener to step inside the music.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me think of negative space in architecture. If you look at traditional jazz, like a crowded cafe conversation where everyone is just shouting to be heard.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks. Naya's curation is more like the profound, quiet intimacy of sitting alone near the window after closing time. Just watching the streetlights reflect off wet pavement.
That architectural analogy is spot on, especially when you look at how she utilizes the low-end frequencies.
Right, the upright bass.
Yeah, the source material breaks down her use of upright bass lines. In a standard jazz track, the bass is the engine. It drives the rhythm forward.
But in Naya's sets, the bass functions more cinematically.
Precisely. The notes are sparse. They sound more like slow, deliberate footsteps echoing through an empty city.
And then layered above that, you have these Rhodes piano textures that just kind of shimmer rather than shout.
And we should note, she is completely unafraid to use electronic polish. There's no allegiance to acoustic purism here.
Right. She isn't pretending it's some 1950s jazz club. She is aggressively modern in her processing.
Exactly. But she proves the technology can actually enhance organic human atmosphere.
By applying ambient processing to an acoustic instrument.
Yeah, applying that electronic haze to an upright bass or a snare brush, it blends human breath with machine smoothness.
There's no friction between the organic percussion and the digital effects.
None at all.
Wait, hold on, though. When you start listing off these diverse elements and looking further down our source document, we see African percussion, Indian melodic traditions, European folk residue.
Yeah, it's a massive blend.
My mind immediately jumps to those generic world music compilation CDs from the 90s.
All right.
Doesn't tossing all these distinct cultural sounds into an ambient blender run the risk of just becoming like exotic background noise for Western ears?
Well, that is the danger with commercial fusion, for sure. But what's fascinating here is that Naya Sol is not exoticizing these cultures.
Okay, so how does the document frame it?
It makes a vital distinction. This isn't a marketing category. It is lived inheritance. We really have to look at the physical soil of Mauritius.
Right, the geography matters.
Absolutely. This is an island nation forged through the brutal histories of colonialism, forced migration, and the trade winds.
It wasn't built around a singular cultural myth like a lot of Western nations.
Exactly. Its foundational identity is rhythmic and cultural pluralism. The borders between an Indian raga and a Creole melody, they aren't dissolved by Naya just for the sake of a cool transition.
Those borders never existed for a Mauritian listener in the first place.
Precisely.
That makes a lot of sense. So she isn't importing exoticism, she is just broadcasting her actual reality.
Yeah, and a prime example of that reality is the Sega Pulse.
Right, the Sega music.
The document notes how often this specific rhythm sits quietly underneath her late-night American jazz chord progressions.
And for context, Sega music originated with the enslaved populations brought to Mauritius, right?
Yes. It is anchored by the ravan, which is a traditional frame drum, and it features this very distinct, rolling, circular triplet beat.
Oh, wow. So when Naya places that deep ancestral pulse beneath a shimmering modern Rhodes piano, she's literally layering history.
Exactly. She's layering history.
Which completely breaks the rigid taxonomy of modern streaming platforms.
Oh, completely.
When you open a music app, the algorithm demands clean, easily categorizable metadata. It wants to put traditional African drumming in one box, down-tempo jazz in another.
And electronic ambient in a third.
Right. But human memory, especially in a diasporic culture like Mauritius, doesn't operate in clean metadata tags. Memory is incredibly messy. It is fragmented.
It is tidal. The text beautifully argues that the broadcast sounds the way memory actually behaves.
It drifts.
Yeah, it drifts. It speaks multiple languages at once, and it surges forward before receding.
So the broadcast feels uncategorizable because human identity is inherently uncategorizable.
Right. And this rejection of algorithmic sorting brings us to the psychological brilliance of when she chooses to broadcast this music.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting. The 3 to 7 a.m. slot.
Yeah, it's not an accident.
No, it's definitely not just a leftover chunk of dead air. It is a very specific, deliberate choice.
Think about it. During the day, we use music defensively or practically.
Right, to drown out the subway?
Or to get energized for a workout or just to focus on a spreadsheet.
But between 3 and 7 in the morning, our neurochemistry is entirely different.
Completely different. Our circadian rhythms hit their lowest point. The ego weakens. Our typical emotional defenses drop.
And the noise of the outside world completely vanishes, which makes our internal monologue just deafeningly loud.
It's so loud.
Thinking about the physical reality of being awake at 4 in the morning, it's a profound, almost vulnerable state.
Very vulnerable.
It's like being 3 hours into a long-distance night drive on an empty highway, or, standing in your kitchen staring at a blinking street lamp because you just can't sleep.
Yeah, you have zero expectations of productivity. You aren't trying to optimize anything.
You are literally just surviving the night.
Exactly. And Naya is curating specifically for the people who inhabit that shadow world.
Insomniacs, night nurses, artists, the emotionally displaced.
She understands the fragility of that state. Mechanically, she curates for it by heavily leaning on suspended chords and unresolved musical tension.
Wait, can you explain the suspended chord thing for those who might not know?
Sure. In music theory, a suspended chord, where you basically replace the major or minor third with a perfect fourth or a major second, it creates this feeling of floating.
Okay.
It inherently wants to resolve to a stable chord. But in Naya's curation, those tracks often just fade out before that resolution ever happens.
Oh, wow. So she just leaves you hanging in the tension.
Purposely. She simulates the emotional ambiguity of the listener. You aren't fully asleep, but you aren't really functioning in the waking world either.
That is so intentional.
And furthermore, she restricts the tempos to that liminal 60 to 70 beats per minute range.
Which essentially mimics a resting human heart rate.
Exactly.
So she isn't just throwing songs together, she is sequencing states of consciousness.
Yes.
And that feels like a radical act of rebellion against the modern attention economy. We are constantly bombarded by media that demands we be energized, outraged, or productive.
Right.
But this broadcast seems to say, hey, it is entirely acceptable to sit in the dark and feel completely unresolved. It validates the act of contemplation.
Which is precisely why an algorithm could never generate this broadcast.
That's a great point. Can an AI ever truly replicate this kind of emotional sequencing? Or is this messy, lived human experience,
Right.
the migration, the longing, the memory, is that an absolute requirement to create transformative art?
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the tension between Naya's human curation and modern recommendation engines is a core theme of the source material.
Because an AI recommendation system operates on, what, high-dimensional vector space mapping?
Right. It clusters songs based on quantifiable acoustic traits, tempo, key signature, vocal presence.
So if you play a slow, moody jazz track, the machine calculates the nearest mathematical neighbors.
And feeds you 75 identical tracks.
It guarantees a plateau. It can only give you adjacent variations of the exact same mood.
Because it doesn't understand the emotional arc of why you were listening to that mood in the first place.
Right. The machine cannot quantify longing.
No, it can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't know what it feels like to stand on a shore and look out at an ocean that separates you from your ancestors.
That is so powerful.
The text suggests that for AI to ever truly replicate this kind of transformative curation, it would have to become an emotional anthropologist.
An emotional anthropologist. Wow.
Yeah, it would need to understand why the transition from a minor key trumpet to the sound of rainfall evokes a specific localized nostalgia.
So long as the algorithm is just mapping beats per minute, it fundamentally fails the listener.
Completely.
And honestly, looking at the broader picture outlined in this document, we are living in a bizarre hybrid reality right now.
Oh, for sure.
We have this deep, ancient, analog longing inside of us, but we are trying to satisfy it through sterile digital systems.
Right. We have infinite connectivity. You can reach anyone on Earth in a second.
And yet we have an epidemic of profound isolation and spiritual hunger.
Because the digital buffet is endless, yet completely devoid of spiritual sustenance.
Yeah.
Naya's human touch, her understanding of pacing and grief and history, it provides the friction and the empathy that a frictionless algorithm just strips away.
And the profound irony is that the delivery mechanism for this deeply human antidote is one of our oldest electronic mediums.
Live FM radio.
That is the most fascinating paradox here. In an era where you can stream any show, including this deep dive, or any album on demand whenever you want, Naya relies on live broadcasts.
Because the power of live radio lies in its temporal sharedness. It is sacred because it is fleeting. When you tune in to an FM broadcast at 4:15 a.m. and hear that slow, upright bass line, you know that somewhere across the island, behind another dark window, someone else is hearing the exact same frequency vibrate through their speakers at the exact same millisecond.
It weaves this invisible, silent community out of individual isolation. You are alone, but you are synchronized with other lonely people.
And that shared synchronous experience forces patience. You cannot skip the track.
You cannot fast forward the silence.
Exactly. The text frames this as slow media as resistance.
Slow media as resistance. I love that.
In a civilization optimized for compressed attention spans and immediate gratification, demanding that a listener sit through a slow, 3-minute atmospheric transition. It's an act of defiance.
So what does this all mean? Bringing it all together, the document frames Mauritius and this broadcast as early signals of future planetary art.
Yeah. We normally think of globalization as a mechanism for mass commercial consumption, extracting sounds from one culture to sell to another.
Right, but Naya reclaims globalization as an act of profound intimacy.
She uses the global debris of jazz, African rhythm, and European instrumentation to map the human interior.
And the imagery running through the source material really anchors that idea, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. You have the volcanic stone, the shifting smoke, the constant presence of the ocean.
They aren't just poetic flourishes.
No, they actually describe the nature of radio waves. Just like the ocean currents, radio waves travel invisibly.
They cross enormous distances.
And they arrive altered by the weather, the atmosphere, and the geography they pass through.
And the smoke represents the way memory shifts and transforms, never staying solid.
Precisely. Underneath our digital avatars and our cultural divisions, Naya Soul is using these invisible waves to remind us that there is a shared nocturnal humanity searching for a home.
And the volcanic stone is the foundation, formed under intense pressure, much like the history of Mauritius itself.
Yes, beautifully said.
So if you are listening to this and wondering how to apply this to your own life, understand that volcanic shores and shifting smoke isn't merely an analysis of an overnight jazz show.
No, it's much bigger than that.
It is an exercise in emotional cartography. It proves that beneath the exhausting, algorithm-driven surface of our daily lives, there is still space for mystery.
Absolutely.
There are people awake too late, thinking too deeply, and relying on these ephemeral broadcasts to remind them they are not navigating the dark alone.
And as we conclude this deep dive, consider your own habits tonight. When the noise of the day fades and you find yourself in those quiet, liminal hours, what do you reach for?
It's a great question.
Are you automatically swiping through an app to fill the silence, terrified of your own internal monologue? Or are you willing to step off the algorithm's conveyor belt, let the silence stretch out, and allow your own unresolved tensions to simply exist in the dark?